coming through the portal to share my life review of a prominent point that I had faced within my life experience on this earth, and which was silence. But silence from the perspective of keeping quiet in especially confronted with moments of conflict, both in my external environment and my internal mind reality, in where and how I utilized keeping quiet in becoming an embodiment of silence, in statuing myself in a moment and zombifying myself so as to wait the conflict out that I was faced with in my external environment and my internal mind reality. But it first started with my external environment, and through time it accumulated into my internal world, and that eventually led to the cause, part of the cause of my death, which I will get to basically at the end of my story, and how and the extent to which keeping quiet when faced with conflict had completely diminished my opportunity of experiencing life and living. And as I was walking my life review, what was strange about this keeping quiet point when faced with conflict was that it was my deluded idea of being superior and strong, and that I was the one in power with keeping quiet, not speaking, not moving, but standing there as a blank space. And I unconsciously experienced that as empowering within myself, and more utilized the presentation of silence, blank space, staring out to nothing as a means to manipulate another human being or human beings and the situations to have it go the way I wanted it to, which was for me not to be a part of it. And within that, the deliberate nature of my keeping quiet, and I have throughout my life experience in this world thought, believed, or perceived that keeping quiet was within an energy of me being a victim, when the very victim point was the manipulation that manifested as the keeping quiet, and that was simply a deliberate projected portrayal of an alternate me to hide the actual me that experienced a sense of power, superiority, that was behind and within that whole keeping quiet personality, and that I was actually enjoying this idea, perception, and belief of power and superiority within myself that I resonantly experienced physically through playing this game with myself and other human beings of keeping quiet and just standing there blankly as a zombie and not moving and waiting for this whole experience, person, or conflict in my external world or reality to stop. So I was actually laughing inside myself from a certain perspective. And this was quite a point for me to face, especially in my life review within Enduring Days, because I so really wanted to have me be the victim of the conflictual situations, and I wanted myself and everyone else to see, but I'm the victim in this conflictual situation with these human beings and within myself, and how I so exerted that starting point of I'm the victim, you must feel sorry for me, I'm the one being attacked here, it is me, I'm being abused, please help me, when all the while, as I was walking through the layers within that personality, I came to the unconscious physical origin starting point of it, and that's where I'd see and realize and understood that the victimization point was simply manipulation, and I was in fact making fun of the whole situation and the human being in a conflictual situation, because I felt empowered and superior by playing victim the whole time. And that's why it was so difficult for me to, even within my life review, really walk through that point. And I really almost fell within my life review in where I would not have had an opportunity to participate in this process of existence because of me not wanting to let go of that point of manipulation. Because in not wanting to let go of that point of manipulation, through playing the game of victim and being abused, in wanting to continue projecting a portrayal of keeping quiet within conflict, what would have happened is what I was actually doing or saying tacitly is implying that I don't want to let go of that defense and protection mechanism, but I want to still use, abuse, and manipulate with that to be able to maintain a addictive experience to superiority and power. And so I'm sharing this process I'm walking here, especially for human beings who have a tendency to manipulate with that victimized personality within the context of keeping quiet within conflictual situations, mostly only verbal, because that was prominent within my life experience in this world and on this earth. I mean, physical conflict is obviously a totally different dynamic and interplay and occurrence, and within that difference we'll have various different dimensional mind effects on oneself, one's physical and one's process. So I'm not here referring to physical conflict, I'm referring here only to verbal conflict. And within that, to see, realize, and understand that the whole point of keeping quiet is in fact presenting a delusion of power and superiority. And one is like in fact standing there and enjoying this deluded sense of power and superiority. I mean, as I was walking my life experience and having a look at the moments of conflict, there was this energy that was moving inside my solar plexus and my human physical body. As I was standing there making as though I'm not hearing, not seeing, not here, but I'm totally here. And I just maintain that stance of being a zombie and just look straight ahead and not do or say anything but stand as a statue. And it's like within myself, I'm literally internally smiling and laughing, and there's just energy that's moving within my solar plexus in my body, which is that adrenaline rushed experience of power and superiority. So I was quite astounded when I'd seen the actual real nature of what I had been accepting and allowing within myself and my world and my reality in relation to facing conflict. And it started within my external world in reality, in where it was with my friends, and from a very young age, and they would yell, shout, and bully each other. And I observed other kids' reactions towards them, and I looked at and I observed the various ways the bullies would then react to the various ways those that they were bullying were reacting. And the various ways that I was seeing was some would fight back, yelling, shouting, screaming, sometimes physically as well. And then what happened is the consequence would be for both in terms of their physical bodies, as well as having to face parents and teachers and things like that. So obviously that reaction was not the way to go. And then other kids would run away and cry, and then they would be made fun of for quite a while within the children environment. And I observed how they were being made fun of, and obviously that was also not the way to go. And so when I was faced with the bullies and they were teasing and shouting and yelling, I just stood there, blank stare, opened my eyes wider and just stared at them and just looked at them. And they continued pushing and shoving and yelling and screaming, but I just kept quiet and I just looked at them. And eventually that became my protection and defense mechanism when confronted with conflict, because I realized that that worked quite well, because I was not giving them anything back. And that was the point that I realized what would initiate or instigate a perpetuation of conflict is if I give something back. And with me keeping quiet, I wasn't giving anything back. So they could only work with what they had, which wasn't a lot, and that would eventually just go away. And so throughout time, even within school, I became more and more of a loner, because I was being left alone, because I was being perceived or interpreted or experienced as weird, because I would simply just stop and stare and keep quiet and not do or say or behave in any particular way. And my reactions towards other human beings were not the same as the other children, so therefore I was regarded as strange, odd, weird, loner. And I mean, even in terms of as I grew older, this became more and more prominent with parents and with elder kids and with teachers, where I would then eventually had created myself into this quietened personality, in where I would just completely go into avoiding conflict within my total world and reality. And so I isolated myself from human beings, from the environment. I mean, I would do what was necessary and asked of me to do, but very limited, and only do it within that one context. And so what I was busy becoming was dodging just everything and everyone, in terms of looking at the point of facing human beings like, why must I go into that quietened personality of just having a blank stare and standing like a statue if I can just avoid conflict in its totality? And so I became more and more and more isolated and secluded within myself and my world and my reality. And I spent time in terms of reading books, and that became my world, was books. And it was a better reality because I could control everything within that reality. And what was interesting was, what I didn't consider within my life experience, was that this whole world, this entire existence, is conflict. And even within myself, in my world and reality, it got to the extent where I separated myself from everything and everyone, because I could see and experience the conflict everywhere within everything and everyone, and I refused to be a part of it, which separated myself completely, entirely and totally from me as the conflict that is existent here as me within myself and my existence. Obviously I didn't realize this then. For me it was simply just to stay away from having to face conflict. And it's not that I had a fear of conflict. It was simply a tactic I utilized to not have to go through that experience of being yelled at, shouted at, or bullied. And so it was like a practical decision that was made within observation. I mean, if it was fear that I experienced within conflict, it would have accumulated within me, within my human physical body, into an actual energetic possession. But the only possession that manifested was power and superiority. And throughout my life experience, I believed that I was more superior, more powerful than other human beings in my world and my reality, because I was so smart and so clever and so intuitive in terms of just walking through this world and this reality, in simply not partaking or participating in the conflicts, and that I had the power, I was right, and I would be submerged in my books, my own alternate mind realities, and within that I would create my own worlds and play around with different realities and characters and beings, and create this total existence for myself inside myself, in which I was the creator, I was God, I could do whatever it is that I wanted. And that's where I drew more power and superiority from within myself. And even when conflict came up inside myself, I'd go into that suppression, that silence, that quietness, and just stop. And I would refuse to be a part of even my own internal conflict that would come up. And so what I do is I'd go and read my books and go into my alternate realities and play there to again manage and maintain my power and superiority and control. And so this whole interplay manifested throughout my life, until later on in life I obviously had to face the real world in having to make a life of my own in this world system. And with me being so secluded from the real world, I had no idea how to function in having any form of relationships which is how you function and exist within the world system through relationship networks. You've got to have your social networks in which to move within to be able to function, establish, and exist within this world and this reality. And I had none. I only had my mind realities and my primary defense and protection mechanism for myself, which was staring blank as a statue. And as I was walking through the world system, I eventually got a job at a market, and in the evenings where I would cashier. And I mean, in terms of other human beings' ideas, perception and beliefs of me, I would have probably seemed like a very weak, useless human being that is not worth anything or much in terms of even considering or looking at or participating with or being a part of, because I had manifested that separation, that quietness within myself to such an extent that even my physical changed, in where I was very thin and bony. And in terms of surviving in this world system, within being so isolated from everything, everyone, even my own mind, is quite dangerous. Because even still, this was my whole life, this total possession point of avoiding conflict within everything, everyone, and everywhere, and submerging myself in my books, in asserting my power, my control, and my superiority, and manifesting that total personality of me being more clever, more intelligent, more wise, in terms of being better than, in not participating and finding this awesome way of not having to face or deal with conflict. And then one evening, while and as I was standing within my responsibility of being cashier, we had robbers come in and pointed a gun at me and yelled and shouted and screamed, "Give me the cash, give me the cash." And what do? I do my blank stare, transforming into a statue, doing absolutely nothing. Within that mind state, not taking into consideration this situation that's playing out right in front of me, but superimposing all contexts of conflict onto this one moment, with me actually thinking and believing in that moment that I have the power and the control to direct this situation. And so I was just staring blankly at them, standing like a statue, just waiting. And I, from that perspective within myself, thought, believed, or perceived that they would simply stop, leave, and go. I mean, they could have taken the money, I wouldn't have minded. I mean, we still, within whatever state we are, value our lives, which is an ego point, in wanting to remain or stay alive because of our total idea, perception, and belief of ourselves as being important. So it's in fact, in essence, our own importance of ego and interest that is keeping us alive in this world and this reality from a certain perspective. And this person with the gun got more and more and more angry and frustrated with me just standing there and not giving him the money, because obviously he was time bound. And in his frustration and in the shaking and the shouting and the yelling, the gun went off and shot me right in the head. And I was dead. And it took a while in terms of leaving my mind consciousness system through my human physical body, because there's still that tendency of ourselves as the mind to want to hold on to living, and therefore actually moving out of that and realizing and accepting that I am dead and busy dying is even in itself quite a process, and not a lot of beings even make it from there when they die, because they so badly want to stay in this world, in this existence, and not die, that they simply disappear and become non-existent with the mind consciousness system, that literally disappear into nothingness, as the being is extracted from the mind and the physical, and the mind then extracts from the physical, because the mind is dependent on the physical human body's functionings to be able to exist. And so that took a while, and what was quite funny, I suppose, was me not wanting to let go of my mind realities initially. Like the whole time while this was happening, I mean, I know I was dying. I was just thinking about my mind realities, my books, and what I've created thus far in my mind, and not wanting to let go of my worlds and my people and my characters, and which is basically not me wanting to let go of the me that I've always been in this world, in this reality. And then moved into the interdimensions physical, which is still right here in this existence, and started walking my life review, which is in essence where you face you as every single point that you had accepted and allowed throughout your life experience, and the effect it has had on yourself, the lives of others, and this existence as a whole. And I mean, with each one of us dying and making it through to that point of doing life review, we in fact see the detail of how we are responsible for what this world is and has become. And with, for example, myself in my life experience in this world, not wanting to face conflict, the very point that I was not wanting to face deliberately was the very point that became my end, my death. Because what I was separating myself from was what was here within myself and this world as conflict, this total existence, this total world within ourselves, our relationships, our experiences, our mind, our communications, our interactions, everything is conflict because of the separation that we're existing as the mind, which consists of and functions through polarities. And we are always in motions of polarity, and within the very existence of polarity is conflict. And therefore, if we accept and allow ourselves to exist in any form of conflict, any form of polarity inside ourselves, we're automatically accepting it within this world and this existence as ourselves. And within that, perpetuating the very nature of conflict, the very nature as separation, which is the very nature what ourselves in this total existence has become. So for those that do this manipulation tactic that I've utilized in keeping quiet and having a blank zombifying stare and standing as a statue in front of another human being and deluding yourself and thinking or believing that you're in power, that you're superior, please have a listen and hear what it is I'm saying and showing. And that is, not all forms of conflict in this world and this reality is exactly the same. And there's no way that you can assess or interpret or foresee how another human being or an environment or a situation or experience is going to play out in relation to your particular approach to or towards it. Like, for example, where I utilized that blank stare statue zombified manifestation and try to superimpose that on all contexts of conflict, it eventually killed me, because I did not take into consideration the being, the environment, the situation, the play out. I mean, he was obviously short on time, and within that was just accumulating within him that energy charge of wanting to get the money out of there, and neither of us took into consideration that the gun would obviously go off in that shaking, and I died. So please realize, see, and understand that avoiding conflict or taking in that power superiority stance in relation to conflict is simply deliberate ego. And when that ego is faced with reality, reality is going to win. Meaning, ego can only take on and be and become like one point, when existence as a whole exists multidimensionally. And if that one point is faced with everything, that one point is going to become nothing, which is what happened with me. I became that one point of ego as power and superiority within that keeping quiet personality, and I got fucked by reality playouts. And so those of you that are accepting and allowing the stance of becoming quiet, stop, realize, see, and understand that conflict is the very nature of ourselves, within ourselves, our existence. Because it's existing inside ourselves, it's existing outside of ourselves. And to assist and support yourself, to when you're faced with conflict, to allow yourself to breathe, like put the being inside of you, put the situation inside of you, which means to really allow yourself to, within yourself, look at who you are towards this being. Who are you towards this situation, this experience, this play out? Have a look at, why is this moment happening? Why is it manifesting? Where did the conflict start? How did the conflict start? What was your responsibility within that? And assist and support yourself to communicate with the conflict, meaning to actually talk about it, get it out, get it directed, and sort it out. Because with taking any affront to conflict, what you are in fact doing is deliberately not taking responsibility. It's like showing the finger to a person in a situation, saying, fuck you, I'm not going to take responsibility here. I'd rather go into my ego and make myself think or believe or perceive that I am more and I'm powerful and I'm superior because I'm not reacting. I mean, we're going to react in complex situations, especially during and within our processes, because conflict situations is where you are directly facing and meeting yourself. It is like staring yourself directly in the mirror. That's what conflict brings out. It brings out your real nature within yourself as your subconscious and your unconscious that one wouldn't necessarily see within your normal, safe, day-to-day participations. So please, I'm not saying to fucking now instigate conflict, to face yourself. This will not work. I'm saying when and as you do face conflict in your world, and this please only in the verbal context, have a look at what is your reactions coming up. What's the thoughts? What's the back chat? Open it up. Let it come out. Let's see what is in there. And when I say let it come out, I don't mean take it out. I mean see it. Open it up inside yourself. Through writing, through self-forgiveness, and see what is that real nature inside yourself, hiding in your subconscious and your unconscious, that is creating and manifesting yourself and your world the way it is. It is through such conflict moments where we can start seeing what is like in the layers within ourselves that is influencing and affecting our behavior, our mannerisms, our decisions, our choices, and our actions. So don't run away from, hide, suppress, or play with conflict situations in the mind. Utilize it as an opportunity for self-realization and self-transformation in changing oneself to actually change this world. So, and within that, to take from this, if you are in polarity participation within your mind, is to assist and support yourself to walk through polarities within your mind to stop that internal conflict within yourself. And what it is that one is essentially walking within this process with destiny is stopping the good and the bad polarity manifestations, which is also the context of how you're walking your emotions and your feelings, the positive and the negative, the charges, the energies within yourself. So, I mean, that is where you start. Investigate your experiences as reactions, as energies, in the positive and the negative, and how the thoughts are even aligned with positive and negative. And then even once back to the internal conversations go to positive and negative, we've got like positive self-talk, negative self-talk. I mean, that's like 3 personalities in one there already, where we've got a negative part of ourselves talking to ourselves, and then comes a positive part and then speaks to ourselves. I mean, it's already within that just creating friction, and we've accepted and allowed ourselves to think or believe that's normal, when we cannot even have a decent relationship or conversation with another human being without any form of conflict or friction manifesting within ourselves or our environment. There's always conflict. And this is why everything is perpetuating in conflict in this world, in this reality, because no one's stopping the conflict within themselves. It's only being perpetuated. So let us walk together as I walk my process in facing the conflict that is here as existence. Our whole process is in essence also a conflict, where we're creating the friction in our own selves and our process in facing ourselves. But that's more in terms of as one is walking and facing oneself, and one experiences that friction, that conflict, it's actually opening oneself up within oneself to see who one really is, and to stop, change and transform that who one really is to actual living, instead of thinking or believing or perceiving that we have to live by and through conflict, when that's not necessary at all. There is another way, and that way is ourselves, in living equality and oneness, what's best for all. Alright, so that's my story, and I hope everyone enjoyed it and took some points from it in stopping internal conflict, facing internal conflict, which you do through your process of walking through your mind consciousness system, and when facing external conflict, verbally especially, to investigate what it is that's coming up inside ourselves. What is it that this moment of conflict externally is showing about the conflict that's existing internally, and then be able to so direct ourselves within and without to actual common sense living, in assisting and supporting ourselves and each other in this world, in this reality, instead of fighting all the time. Thank you very much.